In the post-war glow of 1947 Los Angeles, a city brimming with Hollywood dreams and neon-lit possibilities, the most infamous unsolved murder in California's history unfolded on a chilly January morning. A young woman, aspiring for stardom, was discovered in a vacant lot. Her body horrifically mutilated, posed with unsettling precision. The press dubbed her the Black Dahlia, and her death sparked a media frenzy that would overshadow every other scandal in Tinseltown. Over 7 decades later, the mystery of who killed Elizabeth Short remains unsolved, haunting detectives, writers, and filmmakers alike. Stay with me until the very end as we uncover the chilling details, the labyrinth of theories, and the lingering questions that make the Black Dahlia murder one of the darkest legends in American crime history. Los Angeles in the late 1940s was a city reborn. World War II had ended, and soldiers returned home, fueling an economic boom that brought fresh faces and big dreams to the West Coast. The film industry flourished. MGM, Warner Brothers, and Paramount churned out pictures that dazzled the world. But just beyond the glamorous facade, shadows lurked. Organized crime infiltrated the clubs, corruption tainted the LAPD. Ambition and desperation walked hand in hand through the palm tree-lined streets. In these bustling boulevards arrived Elizabeth Short, a 22-year-old from Massachusetts. She had the classic Hollywood aspirations: to become an actress, to see her name in lights. Known for her striking dark hair, porcelain complexion, and penchant for stylish black attire, she was labeled the Black Dahlia by friends or local newsstands, an ominous nickname that would soon become tragic legend. Before she moved to Los Angeles, Elizabeth Short was just another American girl navigating a difficult family life. Born on July 29, 1924, she grew up in Massachusetts, where her father's disappearance during the Great Depression fractured the household. He eventually resurfaced in California, but it did little to quell the turbulence in Elizabeth's formative years. By the time she hit her late teens, Elizabeth had drifted through various East Coast cities, seeking independence and excitement. She briefly relocated to Florida, worked as a waitress, and dated military servicemen. Eventually, the siren call of Hollywood's bright lights pulled her westward, where she hoped to find stardom, or at least a better life than she had known. Instead, she found herself adrift, couch surfing at friends' apartments and hotel rooms. Nobody could have guessed she was on a collision course with a monstrous fate. On January 15, 1947, Los Angeles awakened to a horror scene. A local resident, Betty Bersinger, was walking with her young daughter through a vacant lot in Leimert Park, a quiet neighborhood south of downtown LA. She spotted what she initially thought was a discarded store mannequin, pale and lifeless on the grass. But as she drew closer, she realized with mounting dread that it was a woman's body. The corpse had been severed at the waist, drained of blood, and posed deliberately. Her face had been slashed from the corners of her mouth toward her ears, creating a grotesque Glasgow smile. The upper and lower halves of her body were spaced apart. There was no sign of blood on the ground, suggesting she had been killed elsewhere. Livid with shock, Betty Bersinger dashed to a nearby house, phoned the police, and set in motion one of the biggest homicide investigations in Los Angeles history. When authorities arrived, they were greeted by an image that haunted even the most seasoned detectives. The victim's arms were raised over her head, her legs spread, and her body scrubbed clean. Her dark hair and vacant eyes presented a stark contrast to the eerie cleanliness of the crime scene. Investigators identified her through fingerprints and quickly realized the victim was Elizabeth Short. The brutal nature of the murder sent shockwaves through the city, and newspapers wasted no time sensationalizing the story. In a grim display of tabloid fervor, the press labeled the case the Black Dahlia murder. Headlines screamed about her alleged affairs, painting Elizabeth as a mysterious femme fatale, often ignoring the complexities of her life. Radio announcers breathlessly repeated gruesome details to a public both horrified and enthralled. One local paper, the Los Angeles Examiner, stooped to shocking depths. They contacted Elizabeth's mother, Phoebe Short, under false pretenses, claiming her daughter had won a beauty contest. The reporters extracted personal information before revealing Elizabeth's fate. Such ruthless tactics exemplified the feeding frenzy swirling around the case. The public devoured every morsel of gossip, rumor, and scandal, inadvertently helping the killer vanish deeper into the shadows. Already under scrutiny for corruption, the Los Angeles Police Department took on the immense pressure of solving this high-profile crime. Lead investigators, including Detective Harry Hansen and Detective Finis Brown, faced immediate challenges. They had a crime scene that seemed staged, with almost no physical evidence. The body's severe mutilation suggested a killer with surgical knowledge or sadistic expertise. In the early days, the force enlisted hundreds of officers to canvass the area, searching vacant buildings and scouring alleyways for any sign of blood or suspicious items. Yet leads were sparse. The only consistent clue was that Elizabeth had last been seen at the Millennium Biltmore Hotel in downtown L.A. on January 9, 1947, 6 days before her body was found. Where she spent that time and whom she encountered remains a riddle. As the Detective Bureau worked day and night, they were bombarded by a barrage of confessions. Over the following weeks, nearly 60 people claimed responsibility for the crime, ranging from attention seekers to the mentally ill. Each confession was methodically debunked, leaving investigators no closer to the truth. Meanwhile, the sensational nature of the murder drew headlines across the nation, making the Black Dahlia a household name. Barely a week after Elizabeth's body was discovered, the Los Angeles Examiner received a chilling letter signed by the Black Dahlia Avenger. The sender had pieced together words from newspaper clippings, taunting police and the press. Even more disturbingly, the package contained Elizabeth Short's birth certificate, personal photographs, and an address book. These items were soaked in gasoline to erase fingerprints, yet they were undeniably Elizabeth's. The letter read like a twisted game. Here is Dahlia's belongings. Letter to follow. This sparked a wave of forensic examination, but the cunning nature of the sender left little usable evidence. The police believed the letter's authenticity because it contained personal effects that only someone in possession of Elizabeth's property would have. Every day the press hammered the public with updates, fueling paranoia and fear. Parents worried about a serial killer loose in the city of dreams. Citizens locked their doors, and an uneasy tension settled over L.A. The Black Dahlia investigation introduced a rogues gallery of suspects, some more plausible than others. Police interrogated ex-boyfriends, army personnel who might have dated Elizabeth, local doctors, and even prominent Hollywood figures. Two names frequently appear in theories. Mark Hansen, a nightclub and theater owner in Hollywood. Hansen was known for providing lodging to young women aiming for stardom. Elizabeth Short had briefly stayed at his property. Rumors swirled that he was infatuated with her. His address book, found in the killer's package, connected him directly to the case, but conclusive evidence never emerged. Dr. George Hodel. Decades later, Hodel's own son, former LAPD detective Steve Hodel, accused his father of being the Black Dahlia killer. Steve's meticulous book, Black Dahlia Avenger, outlines circumstantial evidence linking George Hodel to Elizabeth's murder. Dr. Hodel was a physician with surgical knowledge, potentially explaining the body's dissection. He was also notorious for a scandalous lifestyle, once investigated for molesting his daughter. Though official inquiries never charged him, a tape recording captured him saying, "Supposin' I did kill the Black Dahlia." They couldn't prove it now. Was he toying with investigators? Or delivering a dark confession? Outside these main suspects, the sheer scale of the investigation meant nearly everyone in Elizabeth's orbit fell under scrutiny. People who knew her from Florida, ex-roommates, and random acquaintances were brought in for questioning. Each lead teased the possibility of a breakthrough, yet every promising thread unraveled into dead ends. In a city addicted to spectacle, the Black Dahlia murder ascended to mythic status, almost overshadowing Elizabeth Short's identity as a real person with dreams and fears. Tabloids depicted her as a strange, alluring figure, sometimes insinuating she led a double life. Headlines proclaimed, "Were Dahlia's secret affairs her undoing? Nightlife angel or fallen starlet? Life." Headlines proclaimed, "Were Dahlia's secret affairs her undoing? Nightlife angel or fallen starlet?" This lurid coverage triggered moral panic. Calls for heightened policing, citywide curfews, and crackdowns on deviant lifestyles rang across LA. Women felt unsafe, wondering if a sadistic predator lurked near their clubs or bus stops. Though the press leveraged the story for profit, many Angelenos demanded accountability, outraged that a killer could commit such a brutal act and seemingly disappear. Amid this public furor, Elizabeth's funeral took place in Oakland. Her mother, Phoebe Short, arrived from Massachusetts in a state of shock. She knew little of her daughter's life in Hollywood, and the cruelty of the press still stung. After burying Elizabeth's remains, she returned east, leaving behind a city that had forever changed. The image of a young woman, once full of hope, was now immortalized in black headlines and whispered legends. Weeks turned into months, and the Black Dahlia investigation stalled. The sensational confessions dried up. The LAPD faced a wave of criticism for failing to crack the case. As new crimes grabbed attention, Elizabeth Short's story faded from the headlines. Yet the lingering questions never truly vanished. A flurry of possible solutions emerged throughout the years. Leslie Dillon, a bellhop and aspiring writer who knew unsettling details of the murder. Investigators briefly considered him a prime suspect. Joseph A. Dumaze, an Army private who confessed while drunk, but had an airtight alibi. Arnold Smith, pseudonym, mentioned in letters to the newspaper, never identified conclusively. None led to a conclusive arrest or conviction. Detectives retired, records were lost, and the Dahlia investigation became the ultimate cold case, forever unsolved, but never forgotten. In time, the story resurfaced through books, TV specials, and even Hollywood films. Notably, James Ellroy's novel, The Black Dahlia, later adapted into a movie, reignited public interest, weaving fact and fiction into a dark tapestry of post-war Los Angeles. True crime aficionados debated theories, sometimes pointing to the inherent corruption in 1940s LA as a reason the real killer evaded justice. Decades after the case went cold, fresh voices emerged with new evidence or interpretations. Some authors pored over old police records, while amateur sleuths analyzed autopsy reports. A few revelations did surface, like missing or incomplete LAPD files or diaries referencing the Dahlia, but nothing that decisively cracked the case. The potential involvement of Dr. George Hodel remains one of the most argued points, fueled by his son Steve Hodell's relentless pursuit. Steve claims even the Black Dahlia Avenger letters contained handwriting and turns of phrase matching his father's style. Skeptics question the objectivity of investigating one's own parent, while supporters say it's the best lead we have. Regardless of who you believe, the Black Dahlia murder stands as a cautionary tale about the intersection of celebrity culture, media exploitation, and police shortcomings. Elizabeth Short's story is a bitter reminder that behind every sensational headline lies a human being lost to violence and a family left with no answers. More than 75 years later, we continue to ask, who killed Elizabeth Short? Did the murderer vanish under a web of corruption and media chaos? Was it someone she trusted? So many leads pointed to individuals in her social circle, yet none stuck. Why the brutality? The precision of her wounds suggests a deeply disturbed mind, or a practiced hand. What role did the press play? Did the frenzied coverage and unethical tactics complicate the investigation? Can new forensic techniques solve it now? With evidence likely lost or degraded, modern DNA testing may be impossible. Despite reinvestigations, no suspect has ever been conclusively linked. For many, this unsolved case underscores the dark underbelly of the City of Angels, a place where illusions shatter, and even the brightest dreams can end in nightmare. Like a haunting echo from a black and white era, the Black Dahlia murder lingers in our collective consciousness. The savage nature of the crime, the relentless media circus, and the enduring mystery have fused into an American legend, equal parts tragedy and cautionary tale. To some, Elizabeth Short symbolizes Hollywood's broken promises and the vulnerability of star-struck youth. To others, her tragic fate stands for a city's collective failure, police, reporters, neighbors, who couldn't protect a young woman or bring her killer to justice. Over the decades, countless theories have emerged, but the truth remains hidden behind rumor, lost evidence, and the dimming memories of a long-gone era. For now, all we have are the unanswered questions, and a name that's become synonymous with the darkest chapters of Los Angeles lore, the Black Dahlia. Thank you for joining me on this journey into one of the most infamous cold cases of all time. If you found this story riveting, consider liking, subscribing, and turning on notifications so you never miss another deep dive into history's most haunting mysteries.